All right, so we pick up right where we left off last year, right? So always late as usual.
For
Never on.
sure.
You think we'd learn by now, and we don't.
No, no. I think. Okay, let's be real here. If you've been following the show for the majority of the time, most people should know to tune in about 8:05, 5 minutes after. If you're
Yeah,
not, it's on you, not us.
yeah.
You always are late. That's how
I
you
guess
know if
you're
you're a
right,
real
dude.
fan.
Yeah, you're right, dude.
You
We'll
think they
pass
would learn, not us.
we'll pass the buck on this one, dude. Yeah, okay. It's y'all's fault. Definitely not ours. Um, guys, it's good to be back. It's been, dude.
6 months, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we finished like once Refugio got bounced out of the playoffs, and we always say we're going to finish the season. We're going to do a show to finish the season, and we just ghost mode.
I thought we did one this year.
No, dude, we stopped. I don't even think I uploaded the last episode to the podcast link, like on Spotify and iHeart and all. I don't even think I did that, dude.
Well, we're here because like February, March, April, June. I don't know. I was like all the way up to like 20 minutes ago thinking about just quitting again. So
Dude, it happens every
we're
year, right?
we're back, I
Every
guess.
year,
But there's
and
a
it's
couple months before the season really starts. Let's be honest.
yeah, it's always about this time where something happens, somebody says something, and it's like, okay, we're doing it again. Okay, that's it. We're doing it again. Uh, man, so just to catch you guys up, what have you been up to, Justin, in this off season?
Oh man, dude, a lot of family stuff. Really, heavy baseball with my youngest boy, and then just trying to keep up with the older one with all his little activities he's got going on, school and whatnot, and trying to make sure the wife's happy so I can do these podcasts.
That's
Pretty much the routine norm. So nothing too crazy. Just chasing little boys around and chasing the wife around and trying not to
hey,
die.
oh, hey, dude, this is a
Oh,
PG
come on.
podcast, dude.
Yeah, you can rephrase it differently, but yeah, chasing my two men around, dude.
Yeah, dude, so for you folks, I got into bourbon this this off season, like the last few months, and I've gone total clown mode on this thing, dude. I don't know if any of you guys are into the bourbon stuff, but it's something else. Let's see. Okay, chat is on. Just want to make sure. So we've got a special guest coming on. We're doing a recruiting episode today, but we've got some ground rules that we kind of need to lay down. So normally we have our chat here, and we are doing a live chat, right? So normally we have it here on the screen here, comes and goes. Um, but for this episode, we are actually going to turn the chat off. You could still submit your questions. We'll see it here. But we there's some compliance things that Marco's got to be in line with, and we don't want to get anybody in trouble. We don't want the wrong questions asked or any fingers pointed or anything like that. So, in the abundance of caution, we're just going to look at the questions. We'll filter them out, and things that we're able to ask, we'll ask. But again, this podcast is going to be generated, generally pointed for you guys, the kids, the coaches, and the parents to kind of understand where we are recruiting in 2023, 2024.
What does the landscape look like?
Dude, it's changed so much. Just like I said in that little demo that we did, that little reel I cut. I mean, it's changed in the last 4 years, or 2 years even.
Since we started the show, it's taking a massive turn, and it's become, I think, a little easier for our guys to get seen, kids down here, because of all the tools you have now. But at the same, I guess, end of the stick, it's just as hard because you're trying to find a place to get your tape to while other kids are flooding DMs and whatnot. So I guess that's where Marco can kind of
yeah, and transfer portal, right? Don't forget that one.
see. And a lot of the stuff like I've relayed to parents that have reached out and asked us, and it's, my couple things are like, first and foremost, class. What class you in? What is your positions? Your coach and his number, if he's cool with that being out there. The link to your newest your most recent huddle highlight tape, where it has you highlighted your name, so that it's easy to decipher on where you're at, and then your GPA. Right, and I feel like that's a good starting base for most kids on Twitter, right?
I think
To
so.
help people kind of look, okay, when I pop on Twitter, hey, Jake Romero, Odom, Texas, class of 2036, running back, 3.8 GPA, da 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 da. Here's his huddle link. I can click it, right?
I appreciate
Go,
that. I appreciate that GPA. Thank
yeah, yeah. You weren't getting a 4.0, but
Got to be in home ec.
but you know what I
Right?
mean. It beats a kid where it's like the name is like Flash, Flash kid, Portland, and then there's like just hardly anything about him. It's like you don't know
Yeah.
his name, you don't know what class, you don't know the GPA, you don't have much to decipher. They're going to move on because there's millions of kids out there that are trying to get looked at,
Yep.
and that right there is a massive red flag of like, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
We can't even contact the guy.
Yeah. All right. So without further ado, I know you guys aren't here to listen to us jammer on with our speculation and whatnot. Let's bring our guest in. Ta-da. Coach, how are you?
And I'm great. No complaints. Just got
Yeah.
done playing about an hour and a half of pickleball with the staff, and I'm kind of laying low for the rest of the night.
So we kind of we had a little chat before the show started, and I got a little chuckle out of the pickleball thing because I got into CrossFit last year, and us
Way into
CrossFit,
CrossFit.
our CrossFit folk are very happy with the pickleball folk because now they're kind of taking the heat away from us, always talking about CrossFit. You got the pickleball guys always talking about pickleball now, so we're just kind of standing in the background, just kind of snickering now.
You see, you pickle? Yeah.
Is that the lingo? Do you pickle, dude?
Y'all
But
understand how fun is it realistically?
it's like taking over.
It's
Right?
a lot of fun. It's I mean, you're still moving around. To me, it's a lot better than going on a jog. And I still get my cardio in. We play doubles, but I mean, it's a little easier to maneuver and control the ball as opposed to tennis. Like I can't play tennis. I'll hit the ball with the net of the fence. It'll be gone. Like there's a little bit more control with the wiffle ball. I can play it. I mean, I ain't the best athlete in the world, so.
I've been wanting to give it a try. You know what I mean? Like I've had buddies hit me up like, "Hey, you want to come play pickleball?" I even have a buddy that his mom bought him and his wife lessons at the country club in I think Corpus. Wife refuses to go, so I got the invite. We just haven't cashed in on those yet.
You get better every time you play.
That's what I hear.
It's all reps, repetitions.
I've seen it. I've never seen it played. I've just heard of it. I know it's like ping pong paddles and stuff on a regular tennis court or something. I don't know. It's too much for me. I can only get into two things at once, and these are already annoying my wife. The two habits I'm into already. So I think if I picked up a third, I'd be living in the garage. But before let's go ahead and jump into Marco's story, right? Marco, I don't want to do you a disservice and just talk about the TikTok thing. I think that's been done. Everybody knows the story. If they don't, look it up because we're not going to talk about it here. But Marco, just some background, Mike. Where are you from? How'd you get to where you're at?
So I'm originally from Zapata, Texas, a little border town about 50 miles south of Laredo, 30 minutes north of Roma. So I mean, not quite the valley, not quite Laredo, just a little town. 3A when I was there. I think they're 4A now. Uh, you know, grew up. My mom was an educator. She taught math. She was my calculus teacher in high school, and she kind of, I had parents that really pushed us to try new things. So it wasn't like just do this or just do that. It was like do whatever you want, do everything. So I mean, I was in mariachi, I was in theater, I was in football, UIL, everything. And it was a lot of fun. It made me pretty well rounded. When I graduated, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Most of my family was in the medical field, so I was kind of given the suggestion because I really liked, the biomechanics and how the body worked and exercise phys. Or like, why don't you try physical therapy? So I went to Texas State University to study physical therapy, and it was about my senior year when I did a 300-hour internship and realized I don't want to do this. It's not what I want to do. So I went home, spoke with my mom, my dad, and we came to the middle ground. What's not exactly coaching and not physical therapy, athletic training. So when I graduated, I got in as a grad assistant athletic trainer at Texas A&M Kingsville, and I did that for a year. Huge respect for that profession. It's tough, but the whole time I was doing that, I'd sneak into like meetings, go hang out with the defensive coordinator, the linebackers coach, pick their brains, just ask a lot of questions because like I loved football, and it was just out of curiosity. We ran a different defense, and so I spent a lot of time with them. After that first year, they had some shifting in the staff. Some people got let go. Some people moved on. So there's a grad assistant position open up. And the first person they thought of was me because I was already there and I already was familiar with what they were doing because of my curiosity. So reached out, asked if I wanted it, switched over from athletic training to football, and finished out my master's. Um, I was given a great opportunity to stay, but you know, especially in college football at the lower levels, like there's some positions that pay money and there's some that, you know, I was a volunteer grad assistant, and the first job they kind of offered me there was a restricted earnings job that maybe paid like $500 a month or something like that. And at the same time, I had a job offer to go coach at the local high school at Santa Gertrudis Academy. And the athletic director there, he's the athletic director now, but he had left and came back. But it was Arturo Lozano, and man, I knew him since he was at Bruni. You know, he's one of the best around, and an opportunity to work and learn from him. And I learned so much things about leadership. You know, I took that first step and got hired on at Santa Gertrudis. After he left at Three Rivers, I stuck around for another year, worked with Bradley Chavez and Ivory Dillard. And after that second year, Bo Camacho got hired on at Mathis, and I got a call, and I was his first call. I got to be his first assistant there, so came over kind of as his assistant head coach, special teams coordinator, ran their strength and conditioning. It was just an opportunity for me to kind of wear a couple more hats, a little bit more responsibility. And plus, growing up in South Texas, you hear about Mathis. It's a historic program that's done amazing things. And to be able to kind of go and wear maroon again and be a Pirate, that was a great experience. You know, I learned a lot from Bo Camacho, and I got to work with Trey Stevens for a short period of time before, you know, the original guy at Texas A&M Kingsville who gave me my first coaching opportunity was the DC, Dave Brown. He had got out of college football. He was getting into high school football, and he just got a head coaching job at PSJ Memorial. So then he called me like, you want to come down to the Valley, a little closer to family, $25,000 pay raise, you know, work at a 5A school for the first time. Because all I'd been is these 3A schools and lack of resources and stuff like that. And then again, you hear about the Valley, like how much pride they have in their football teams and like how many people show up to the games and all the pride and stuff like that. So to me, that was easy to work for a guy who'd already given me my first opportunity in coaching. So I moved down to the Valley and worked with Coach Brown, and that was such a rewarding experience. Like, you know, we didn't win many games, but we won a lot off the field. To me, like we showed up and there was like 40 kids. By the time, you know, all we did was recruit on the kids in the hallways, you know, got them to, you know, talk to other sports. And by the time fall camp rolled around, we had like 100 kids. Like we had 2 freshman teams, which hadn't been done there in years. So there was a lot of small victories, and small victories equal to big W's in the long run. Uh, you know, then we got hit with the pandemic, and everybody kind of knows what happened there and articulated there. It wasn't necessarily a great time for a lot of people, and some people and some found ways to make it productive, and develop themselves and network and meet new people. You know, at the time with the whole TikTok stuff, like I was getting a lot of phone calls. Like different high schools wanted me to go, smaller colleges wanted me to go, but I was working for my mentor, for the guy who gave me my first job. I wasn't really looking to leave. I was comfortable. I was home. I was making good money. I was happy, but there was like a very short list of schools that if they ever called, it'd be really, really hard to say no. And as random as it was, Eden High School was on that list. I've known about Eden for like 3-4 years at that point. It's a 5 or 6 year old school, brand new. But my best friend from college, his wife was a dance instructor there. So I knew about it. It's a brand new school with the Seahawks color scheme. And it was really interesting to me. And it was like I'd always wanted to get in kind of on the ground floor of a program. So, you know, I had the head coach reached out to me on Twitter, wanted to get on the phone. We got on the phone and we talked about it, talked about going up there to being the recruiting coordinator and helping their kids get offers and being the running backs coach there. And I had a really tough conversation with Coach Brown, like really tough, because I didn't want to leave. I had never moved away from South Texas besides going to college at Texas State. But even then, people consider that South Texas. But the opportunity to be at a 6A in the DFW in a district that we played, South Lake Carroll, I mean, Coach Brown said he'd be pissed off at me if I didn't take that job. So I went, moved up to the DFW, and man, that was an awesome experience. We had the best year in school history. Won 9 games, went 3 rounds in the playoffs. Um, Lost to a really tough Prosper team, and we had like 4 or 5 kids that before I got there didn't necessarily have D1 offers, and by the time I left, they accumulated Power 5, Group of 5 FCS offers. Uh, that was also the most amount of kids we'd ever send off to go play college football. That's all the way from D2 to NAIA to D3. You know, it was just a really cool opportunity to utilize the the following I got from what I'd done with social media and use it in turn to help kids. So I mean that was awesome. It's funny. It was like after that last game, I was talking to our head coach Ellis Miller, and I told him, I was like, Coach, like I'm not leaving. I don't want to leave for another high school job. This is it. This is the one. Like, I love it here. And then like 2 weeks later, I get a call from Washington State. Which, to be fair, I didn't leave for a high school job.
So what? Tell us what that was like. That jump, especially like you said, you've never left South Texas. You moved to Dallas, and now you're going to the Pacific Northwest. You know, there's not a lot of us up there, right? If you know what I mean, right? So what was it like jumping from a high school job and jumping into a D1 Power 5 job right away?
It was nerve wracking. I mean, I was excited. The good thing is I went into a program with a lot of great people that cared about my growth and invested in me and taught me, because they didn't just throw me to the wolves and say figure it out. Like they showed me how the ropes, the rules, how recruiting works. Going in as a recruiting assistant, that was a really cool experience because you get your hands in on everything. Like you're evaluating, you're making cut ups, but you're also on visits. You're hosting families. You're picking kids up from the airport. You're taking them to dinners. You know, there's a lot of pieces. There's the personnel side. There's the actual recruiting side, the on campus. There's communication aspects of it in terms of running the recruiting communications and operations, and you just learn everything. And I did that for 6 months. It was a great experience. And then 6 months in, our director of on-campus recruiting, Jessie Ciomalo, she got a job offer to go to the 49ers. She got an NFL opportunity. She took it, uh, which was awesome for her. And it was just one random day I get a call from Coach Rolovich, the head coach. He's like, Marco, I'm sure you've heard Jesse's leaving. You know, I'm thinking about you for that position. And it's a little less football, a little more recruiting operations, but you're a smart guy and you can figure it out. You know? And I've always been told never turn down a promotion. So, you know, I took it. And that was a cool experience because before then, I'd never booked a flight in my life. And now I
Hey,
was
Patrick.
booking flights for recruits, coaches, rental cars, booking hotels, making itineraries. I was like a glorified wedding planner, but like it was just really cool. It really helped me be more organized and learn again more of the operation side of things. So we rocked that for another 6 months. You know, unfortunately, middle of the season, Coach Rolovich was let go. Coach Dickert was elevated, and we were kind of right in the thick of things in December and January, and trying to hold together a recruiting class. And we can proudly say, like, even with all the coaching changes, like we maybe lost 1 or 2 kids, but then we came around and finished and completed the whole class, and that was one thing that was great that I was able to be there and be that kind of glue through some staff changes because with the coaching changes, we also had staff changes in the recruiting department. You know, director of player personnel took off to Boise. You know, director of recruiting took off to Arizona. So I was kind of like the lone man left and just trying to do what I could. They eventually hired some of these positions, but what they noticed was just I did the only thing I knew how to do is kind of put my nose down and work hard. And I was rewarded again, like another 5 months in. It'd been less than a calendar year of me being in college football, and I'm already getting my second promotion to being director of recruiting at a Power 5 program. So, like that was awesome, and that position was more so, you know, overseeing the on-campus stuff, not necessarily being in charge of it anymore. Overseeing the communications, overseeing how we attack certain kids, because there's a difference between player personnel and evaluating, and the act of recruiting a kid. So that's what I was more in charge of, is how are we going to get this kid to say yes to us? What are we going to do? What are our requirements in terms of like, what do we need our coaches to do? What phone calls, what text messages, what graphics, what videos. So it was really cool to learn that side of things. And I did that for another 6 months. Then it was around May, late May, which is, I wasn't expecting the call because the jobs are usually like January, February, May, like you're just finishing spring ball, you're getting ready for the season and stuff like that. And then I get a call from Coach Bloomgren, who I met back when I was in high school, and I just kind of stayed in touch with him the whole time. So it's just never really asked him for a job. It was just somebody I stayed in touch with, and he was a really, really good person. And he's told me, he's like, I'm just going to be quick. My director of player personnel just took a job out in Miami, and you're the first person I'm thinking of. Do you want to come back home? And man, like, it was just the perfect time. I was really homesick, and it's an opportunity to lead a recruiting department. Like I told you before, like the on campus, I did the booking of the flights, the recruiting, I did all the communications, but like now being the director of player personnel is like overseeing everything and being more involved in the evaluation side of things, and like being the right hand man with Coach Bloomgren in terms of building this roster and scholarship allocations and talent evaluation, and looking at where we need to add pieces, where we need to move pieces around. So it's just an opportunity to be back in Texas, be the director of player personnel at a Division I school in the state of Texas, and then a school like Rice, where that was a dream school for me coming out of high school. I didn't have the athletic ability to play D1 ball, but I was valedictorian in my class, and the whole intellectual brutality slogan is like everything that I believed in high school. So to be able to be here and be able to recruit like-minded kids, and it's a blessing. Like it's been really, really awesome to be a part of this program.
So we got a question real quick, and it's a coaching question. What are the time requirements at Washington State compared to the high school jobs you had?
They're all different. With college football, all really depends on what time of the season you're in. Now, if it's fall, man, it's a grind. We're there early. If we're early practicing, or either way, we're there early and we're there late. Especially throughout fall camp, going into the season, it takes a lot of hours. But as you kind of get into different parts of the year, it tapers off a little bit. Now, I will say like December. So right after the season, bowl season, you go right into December. That's the first signing day. So you're really cranking it out with like official visits, trying to finish that class. The ideal thing is to like finish your recruiting class in December and then find a couple missing pieces in January. So it gets really busy around that time. And then after the second signing day, so it's pretty much a grind from August through February with a little bit of break. Like after Christmas, we get about a week and a half, 2 weeks off, and then there's the national convention, AFCA, and then we're right back at it, for that February signing day. After February signing day, again, it kind of slows down a little bit, taper off, and then you kind of get ready for spring recruiting, which is coaches going on the road. And now that's a lot of strategizing on my part in terms of you could only visit a school twice during that entire period, and you could only go once a week. And then you only get 168 days on the road. So you can't just say free for all, everybody go on the road. Like you have to strategize in terms of like, well, if somebody's hidden this school once, I want the position coach to be able to see this guy too. And I know it's this guy's area, but let's save the second visit for this guy. So it's just kind of playing air traffic control where people
sounds like it.
They're not all hidden in the same spot, because then that's a violation. But the hours there, like I said, it's not the same as fall camp. The hours there is more so you get in there when the school day starts, because that's when those guys are in the schools, and you're just about done when the school day ends, depending on what time zone they're in. But that way you're there to answer all the questions. And again, everybody here in the office while the coaches are on the road is air traffic control. We're calling high schools like, hey, coach, is it cool? What time's your athletic period? Can we get a coach there to stop by? Is that fine? Or does another day work? And you're just helping out with their schedule, and all the while also getting sent these prospect sheets. And we're just kind of, my department, we're just cranking through those. Then, we get spring break, we get into spring ball. Spring ball it's kind of like a junior version of what the season is. Like we practice 2-3 times a week. The hours are a little different depending on if we're practicing or not. But the big difference is like we're hosting kids. We're hosting kids. This is when it's open and we can bring kids into spring practice and check it out. Um, and then once we roll into late May and June, that's camp season. So like we don't see a lot of the coaches. The coaches have been on the road. We get 10 camps. So we have to pick and choose which camps we're going to. And that's also included the camps that we host. So we hosted one and we went out to 9 camps. And then kind of what most programs do, it's what we did at Washington State, it's what we do here. Once we get to July, it's a dead period. That's our vacation. So usually we get the month of July off during the dead period, with maybe here a couple days here and there where you got to come into the office. You would get Christmas off, unless you're playing in a bowl game on Christmas, which not a bad deal when you're
That's the
playing.
goal, right?
Yep. And then spring break and a couple other things here and there, depending on holidays and stuff. But I guess it was a really long way to answer the question. But the hours, they just differ. I mean, there's times that I felt like, man, that the days were forever at high school because you're teaching 8 hours of the day. But in college football, you're probably maybe working the equivalent or more, but you're just doing football all day. So it kind of time flies.
Justin and I had always been under the misconception, maybe not Justin, but me. I figured, coaching in the college ranks would be, time consuming, but not as because you're not teaching as you are in high school, right? You're not teaching a subject. You don't have 8 hours of classroom time, but it sounds like you're a little more busy. You know,
There's always things to do. It's not like there's no busy work. Like you're. I mean, if you get to the office, and especially what I do with my recruiting department, you get to the office, you get what you're supposed to get done. You're good. Like it's a little lenient. There's no bells. There's no whistles. I mean, there's no like a bell schedule of
yeah.
class. It's like you come in here and like, I could take a lunch a little bit later. I could take a lunch earlier. Maybe I need to go get something done. Like you come back, it's a little more open ended.
I
But
feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marco, but the vibe I get from you, man, and I think to do the job that you're in, and I think right with coaching in general is like you love it, right? So I'm sure 95% of the time throughout the year, you probably get to work and feel like you don't even have enough time to do the stuff that you're trying to accomplish on a daily basis. And like you feel like your days are short, even though it might be a 12-hour day you just put in, but looking for recruits, looking for schedules to fit in, and just like trying to find me time, right? But like your time's flying by, but at the same time, it's like you're lost in it because you're passionate about it. So I feel like it's not as much of a like it's a job, but for someone like you who seems like you're passionate about the industry and what you're doing, it's like I feel like I would have the emotion of like, damn, it's already 5 o'clock. Like my day ran out already. I still have stuff I'm trying to accomplish here.
But
Like
that's good busy, right? That's
it's
good
good
busy.
busy. No, it's good busy. Exactly. Like it's not one of these like, God, I got to be there at 8. I'm there till 8. I hate my life. Like because a lot of people work that kind of job and schedule.
I mean, there's days that feel like that. I mean, it's just you do get tired. The days do get long, but I mean, exactly like you said. I mean, if you love it, the days kind of fly by. But it was told to me early on, and the same thing. I practice what I preach, especially with my staff. Like, there's always work to be done. I could be here till 3 in the morning if I feel like it. There's always stuff that can be done, but you have to find a point in the day to cut it and say, I can do this tomorrow. I can continue this tomorrow because you will burn out. And that's something that I've been really good about monitoring. Like there's days where I got to stay a little bit later, but I'm going to go over there to my staff and say like, hey, you guys are good. Like, let's do this tomorrow. Like there's no need to burn ourselves out. Like it's, especially like this is year 3 for me, or maybe going to year 4. I don't even know. But like, I plan on doing this for a lot more years. I don't need to, burn myself right now.
Yeah. So I'm going to hit back on something you just talked about. So you've got summer vacations that come up, right? Earlier offline, we were talking, they're pretty lengthy. And this is kind of piggybacking. We had another question, and it's something we had on the agenda to get to. Your vacations will be cut a little short this summer. Is that correct?
Yeah. I won't get to spend my full 4 weeks off. I get to spend part of my vacation in Jacksonville with the Jaguars for an entire month from July 20th through August 20th. So I'll miss some of our fall camp here at Rice. I'll be working with the tight ends and the special teams. So it's a really, really awesome opportunity to just get NFL experience and work and learn from some great, the best of the best. I mean, everybody, like as a player, as a coach, you have NFL aspirations. It's a dream come true. I still kind of don't believe it's happening.
You know, and I know I said I wasn't going to hit on this TikTok stuff, but I remember an article that came out about you when you first took off on social media. Um, you've applied for this Bill Walsh fellowship for years, right? This isn't the first time you've applied for it, and it was a one shot, one kill kind of thing. I mean, you've been at this for a while, right?
Yep, I've applied for 6 years. I think it was year 3 or 4. I got an email back from the Chiefs that said, "Hey, thanks for applying." And I was like, "Oh my god, I got an email back." Like this is Greg Lewis. I was like, "Oh my god." And then last year I had an interview with the Panthers, didn't get chosen, but still I was like, "Oh my god." I was on a Zoom call with the general manager and all these people. Like really, I was just blessed for these opportunities. And then this year was just I'd kind of already given up. It was really late in the process, and then I just got a random DM from a coach that I'd known for a while that I kind of forgot was on the Jaguars, and well, he just hit me up. He's like, "Hey, we just had somebody flake out. Do you want it?" I'm like, "Yes." I was like, "Let me just clear with my head coach because you got to figure out what times are good. Sometimes they don't let you stay very long, and sometimes they want you to stay longer." And we came to the agreement of a month, and man, I'm just so happy and excited.
So is that basically, Marco? You're going to get to go, and like you mentioned, you're working with special teams and tight ends, right? Like you're going to go and you're going to learn from NFL coaches on how they kind of attack those positions and how they coach and run their meetings with the NFL talent. Essentially, like that's what this Bill Walsh experience is for, right? That's you're learning basically almost like a coach's clinic on hands.
Yes. So this is to prepare you to take that NFL job. It's a program that's designed specifically for minorities. Um,
Okay.
and every
And it's not
team,
a new program, right?
no,
This
it's been
program has been
around
around
for
for almost a few decades, hasn't it?
it's expanded. They used to do it like one person per team, two people per team, and now I'm seeing some people have eight, and then they have different ones. You can go work OTAs. Like some people are just finishing theirs up. I don't know if you saw Manny Martinez at Kingsville got to work with Juan Castillo with the Commanders throughout OTAs, and then mine like different people have training camp ones. So like mine's during training camp. So there's two different windows you can get it, and it's expanding. Like it's a really cool thing, and for me it's an extra sense of pride because there's not a lot of people that look like me uh, in college football, let alone the NFL. So again, to be one of the few the proud to represent, and especially from South Texas, being from Zapata, Texas.
For Rasa Holmes, yeah, man.
And what was my area code when I texted you there?
10956.
Yeah, it hadn't changed.
Hasn't changed,
I'm
man.
planning on changing it.
So I don't want to veer too far away from the recruiting thing and what you're doing right now, right? Because that's great info. But like, is that still part of your goal, right? Long term, once you've had your run in the recruiting thing, are you going to try to look for kind of bumping yourself back into a position coach role and then possible OC or DC? Is that something? Is that like a little goal you got set up in your own own realm? I guess.
Yeah, man.
I don't want to bind you up and make it
No, it's
spot.
always an aspiration. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know whether there's a certain timeline, but eventually, I like to get back to having my own room, to being around the guys like that, and the coaching world or coaching aspect of things. And yeah, I do have aspirations of being a head coach. Like you have to have big, lofty goals. If I heard it one time, I think it was CJ Cavazos who said it one time, like if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. So I'm a firm believer in like shoot for the stars. Like the worst thing they could tell you is no. I applied for this NFL internship every year and really didn't expect to be told yes, but I still like you shoot your shot, shoot your shot. Same thing for like recruits, like you're out there shooting your film, you don't know who's going to watch it. Like that's the biggest thing. I'm a big like supporter and like shoot your shot. Like the worst they could tell you is no, and then guess what? You're still where you're at. It's not like it hurts you to go
Yeah,
out and shoot your shot.
absolutely.
So we got another question, coach, and it's another coaching social media question. I think I kind of misstated about the TikTok thing. So um I know you said you weren't asking about TikTok, but you'd admit that the social media helped elevate you to the position you're in today. Personally, I'm trying to grow my YouTube page, Pigskin and Poetry. So my question is, do you think that social media is something high school coaches should be heavily involved in, or do you think it distracts from our true purpose? What's the balance there? Any advice?
So I don't think it distracts, especially if you're not being something that's not genuine. Like if pigskin and poetry, that page is just something. It's just another extension of you. It's who you are. Then to me, that's not a distraction. Like I'm a big believer in like everybody has this belief that there's this cookie cutter of what a coach is, and you gotta be tough, and you gotta have chew in your mouth and do all this. Like, no, like you could do whatever you want. That's like I play music, I make funny videos, I like food, so I post food all the time on my Twitter. It's just about being yourself because I also want to portray that to the kids too. That it's okay to like be yourself and not worry about what other people think or what everybody's perception of you is. Like be yourself, and then I admit like it helped me, because there's a big thing that people say. It's not about who you know. It's not about what you know. A lot of the times, majority of the times, about who you know is you. And being able to get my name out there and grow my following overnight from like 2,000 followers to however many it was during the pandemic, like that's how I met Coach Rolovich. Did we ever talk about a job? No, but like I met Coach Rolovich through Twitter because he liked my videos, and we grew a relationship. And again, I'm just trying to think of the best way to say it. Like I wouldn't call it a distraction. I definitely wouldn't, and I'm a big supporter in it. I like people. I know I appreciate Jacob. That you were like, we're not gonna talk about the TikTok. Like I get it. Like I got a lot of slack when I first got the Washington State job.
And, I was going to ask you that. Was there any animosity towards you when you got this job? Was it, oh, he's a social media, diva? This guy doesn't know what he's doing.
There
Did
was
you see a lot of that?
there was a lot of people who said I was like a gimmick. They're like, oh, he just got this job because he does funny videos. Like that's why he's at Washington State. And then I got that first promotion. They're all like, it's whatever. Like it's just on campus. It's just so he's a pony. Like he's just doing a show. Like he's the guy. Like he does TikToks, and then another elevation. Then people. Then I start getting recognition, put on lists, 30 under 30. I get minority watch lists and these things, and people start to realize, well, he kind of maybe knows what he's doing a little bit. And I've had to fight that, since 2020 or whenever I happen to do the videos. And like that's why I respect Coach Miller at Eden High School, because he didn't hire me because I was a TikTok guy. Through TikToks, he was able to recognize who I was, but I still had to go through interview process and stuff like that. I still had to interview at Washington State. That wasn't called and offered to me. Even though Bloom called me for this job, I still had to come and interview too. So it's at this point, if they keep saying it, I mean, it's to me, it's disrespectful to the organizations that keep hiring me.
Yeah, that's true.
Jaguars didn't call me because I do TikTok videos.
I think that to follow up with Marco on that, and it's 2023, right? I mean, I feel like honestly, if you're a high school football coach and you're not involved in social media and you're not keeping tabs on what your athletes are doing and you're not using that as a way to branch yourself, and I get people have families, right? And high school coaches are there to teach and coach, and then as much as they can do at home off the side with their family, they get. But like, if you have a passion to promote your kids and promote yourself, that's the biggest tool in this world right now is social media. Twitter being a massive tool for the coaching world. It's been a huge tool for you and me, Jake, just in connections with people like Marco and
Jamal. I mean, we were talking about
people will see you on your Twitter, and I think that if you're genuine on Twitter, you're going to have people reach out to you, and I think that's how you build connections and you can network nowadays. And because not everyone's able to go to every coaching clinic or a little wine mixer here and there that you can meet these connects. And Twitter's a great way. TikTok was your branch, and then you're heavy on Twitter, but like the kids are all over it. It's just another tool. And I understand the older coaches. I think like the kid they got. My coaching staff when I was in high school, there's no way they'd be on Twitter, right? That was old school.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's like you're seeing some of these guys, like some of the older coaches. They're getting on Twitter, and those kids will tell you a lot of stuff on on social media that you can learn out about them. And I think it's a good tool, not a distraction, as long as you're not on there acting like a distraction. I think
Yeah,
is
I think that's
make it,
key. I think that's the key point. You just hit it right there on the head.
don't
Don't
act
be the
like
distraction. Yeah, yeah.
just genuine content. And yours was always genuine. And look where it got you. It's crazy. And I think I never looked at you, Marco, and thought, oh, this dude got that job at Washington State because he's a gimmick on TikTok. I looked at you and I thought, man, dude, I was like, that was, that was good. That was well played. Like, it's just, it's the way it is. Like, you're younger. I think, how old are you right now, Marco? What?
Turned 31 in May.
Okay, so me and you, I'm 30. So we came in the same era. Like, I get it. Like,
Wow, Justin, you
that
blew
was,
it.
yeah, no shit. Definitely, definitely took the wrong path. I got another question though for you. When you said you were homesick, how big did Whataburger play into that factor of coming back to Rice?
Hey, man. Hey. No name brands, dude. We don't have any ties to that, dude. All right, come on, man.
So I'll tell
Well,
you, any time I was able to go home. So the only way I'd go home, I had to find like either Spokane or Lewiston or something like that, get a connecting flight to DFW, then fly down to McAllen. I already knew, like, it didn't matter which terminal I flew into DFW. I already knew it was E25. There's a Whataburger in the DFW airport, E25. So I'd land, I'd go get my Whataburger, and then go wait for my next connecting flight. And then when I'd land, I wouldn't tell my mom. So she would always ask me, "Well, do you want to get some?" Yes, I want to get some Whataburger.
Dude, it does. It hits different, right? When you've been living out of state for a while, and you come back, and when I was in the service and we were overseas or in another state, that's the first thing we would do is we'd hit a Whataburger, man. I mean, it's home, right? I mean, it's home.
Yeah, it's exactly like you said. When you hadn't had it in a while, like, oh man, like it's just it just reminds you, like, you reminisce of like after games when they give you that soggy Whataburger, but like,
absolutely,
man, it's the best.
Yeah.
it is right. Sometimes
Justin
the
put Justin put
Whataburger
a
is better
10,
than a fresh Whataburger. I'm not gonna lie, dude.
Justin put a 10 pattier down one time. That's no lie. That's no. We even tweeted Whataburger on it, tagged them in it. They didn't nothing. They didn't respond to it at all. That's a
That's
huge
my prime,
accomplishment.
dude.
Stop it. They're slack.
But I think that's a good segue into what we have you here for today, right? Um, recruiting, right? Recruiting has changed so much, man, in the last 2 years. You know, um, there's a lot of myths, a lot of misconceptions out there. One of the things that we've talked about before online is, and we hear it all the time, is that a real offer that kid got? You know what? What is the non? Is there such thing as a committable and non-committable offer?
Yeah, that's just the way it works nowadays. With the way the culture has shifted, like, sometimes you can't even get a kid on campus unless you've offered them. Like, they won't come see you. You're like, come visit, and like, they're like, no, you haven't offered me. I'm not going to go. So sometimes just to get in the game, especially with, like, you see these like really younger kids, like ninth and 10th graders getting offers, like they're 2 years away from committing. Like it's all projection. Like, you see some kids that get Power 5 offers early, and then when it's all said and done, they commit to like an FCS school or something like that because it was just all projection and those dried up. And you're trying to tell me that a kid who has multiple Power 5 offers wouldn't commit there when it's all said and done, and he's going to, like, I'm going to go to this FCS school. It's just the name of the game. And now everybody operates a little differently. Like, I will say at Rice, something we pride ourselves on, like, you look at the average in the American Conference, and everybody has thrown out about 200 offers. Now you're telling me that they can take 220.
You're not going to sign 200 kids, yeah.
No. So we will throw out a low amount of offers. We pretty much, the only contingency is getting into school, but like every offer we throw out is committable. If you can get into school, it's yours, and that's something because it's like our slogan. It means more. Not everybody can get one of these. We're very selective and very picky about it. But then you have other schools that just sling them around, and there's nothing wrong. Like, they're just, again, there's just two ways people operate. There's like, I'm gonna throw all these offers out because when it's all said and done, when it comes down to it, like, full circles, we offer them sophomore year, and then it gets down to senior year. Like, hey, we got in the game sophomore year, so maybe some of the other ones dried up, but we still want you. we were there from the start. Um, so I guess yes, there is such thing as committable offers and non-committable offers. It's just part of the game.
How hard is it to recruit at Rice in the conference you're in and just in the landscape of football because you're like Notre Dame, I mean, and you're like Stanford. It's you can't take a 5-star who's got a GPA that's barely hanging on. You know what I mean? No matter how bad he wants to go to your school, that with the grades and academics, correct? Like y'all have strict allowances to get into that school. So is the difference at Washington State versus Rice navigating that, was that kind of a challenge at first when you got there of being able to like select the kids and be like, man, this is a little tougher now?
I mean, it's there's pros and cons to it. The one of the cons is there's a smaller pool to select from, and one of the pros is there's a smaller pool to select from. So instead of having to look at all these millions of kids, like we have programs where I can hit filter GPA, and it's going to, hey, give me everybody above this GPA, or and then you're able to just kind of pick and choose through those. But yeah, like you can't take any kid. You get your heart broken a lot. Like I've really come accustomed to, like if I like if a kid reaches out or a coach reaches out, the first thing I'm asking for is a transcript. I need to look at it to make sure it meets certain check boxes before I even commit to watching film, because I'm not going to watch a kid's film, fall in love with it, and then get a transcript and they can't get into school. That just breaks my heart. You know what I mean? So maybe there's other ways to do it. Just the way I do it is I want to see your transcript before we get you evaluated by our staff.
I guess that's a good intro on our what I was going to ask you earlier was when you were talking about bringing kids in and stuff, like how many times have you been like the heartbroken little kid that didn't get the puppy? You know what I mean? When because you be around kids, like you might really like a kid, and then there's another kid over here, and it's like for whatever reason you and this kid over here just clicked, whether it's like dumb little jokes or things like that, like, and then like at the end of the day you didn't get that kid. Like how hard is that to try to put aside, because that's a big part of your industry. You're not going to get every kid that you love, and
Yeah,
you're
it's
gonna
tough.
get some that you do, like it's a lot of
I
hard.
mean, I'm a competitive dude. I get pissed off. Like it's you want to get every kid you want, but I mean the reality is, I mean you're not necessarily going to do that. It's sometimes you can, sometimes you don't, but you just on to the next. That's why we have our big boards. Our boards, we like to usually keep them about 8 deep, and then as one kid, like let's say top kid, goes somewhere else, move him, bump somebody down, bump everything up. That's just next man up mentality.
Yeah. What What's your anxiety levels day of signing day and early signing period?
To
Because
be
it's a big,
honest,
yeah.
very low. By the time we get to December, we should have our class locked in. This last class we had everybody committed like a week or two prior. So it was just, hey, make sure you sign the paper. Hey,
And
make sure you wake up and like just call like, hey, you up? All right.
Make sure your mom lets you sign the paper.
It's
and
7 a.m., buddy. Sign
and
in, scan it. And you don't have to scan it anymore. You take a picture on your phone. Like it's to me, it's like when you get to sign day, it's like the finish line. You're like, yes, we're here.
and this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this has been your 22, 23 class. This was the
Best class.
most best class in Bryce program football program history, correct?
Yeah, our overall average rating per kid and ranking and overall ranking, and that's a testament, like huge testament to everybody in this building, because it's like not one person does the job. I know everybody keeps slapping my name on it, but like it's everybody. Everybody has a piece and has to touch a kid in a certain way. Like has to reach out to them, call them, send them graphics. Get when they get on campus, they have to feel at home. So like that was a huge team effort of everybody, doing that, and it's just another step in the direction we want to go. It's the standard now. Like now we got to do better, and that's what we want to strive to do.
So,
So
like, you've been nailing some topics on y'all's end, right? Things y'all try to do to make sure you can get these. What's some things that, like, kids from down here that, you know, you're a great tool to have on right now, and just be able to kind of explain to some of these kids, because we've had many of parents come up and ask us, like, hey, like, what can we do to get our kid, some exposure? What does my kid need to do? What is something that's going to help him, kind of stand out there amongst the other millions of kids trying to get to that next level of college ball? And from being down here in South Texas, it's a little harder to get that exposure. And your big campuses, they're right there in the DFW, they're in Houston, they're around the Austin area, where there's tons of just mega talent, that you can 10 minutes down the road from Rice, and you're watching great high school football with a couple D1s or D2 kids, so that's something I think that Jacob and we wanted to touch on, was what's something that kids down here can kind of start looking at and doing to help themselves out.
And that was actually a question that was submitted right now. What are the best suggestions to get on a D1 coach's radar? Marco, and to piggyback on what Spud said, this is you're from here, right? And it's like there's a stigma south of San Antonio with our kids down here, right? So what do you and it's picked up lately the last few years. We've noticed a lot more kids getting some D1 offers, a lot more kids just going to college in general to play football, right? No matter what classification. So it's picked up. But yeah, what are some things that some of these kids down here can do?
The big thing is, it sounds really harsh, but you got to be a little realistic. Not everybody's a Division I football player. Like, a percentage of everybody gets an opportunity to do it. But yet, can you play college football? Yes. But you have to be strategic in how you do certain things. The first thing, and it's why people in South Texas are getting on the radar, you got to run track. Because you may be running away from people on your film, but we don't trust film anymore. People will doctor it, speed it up, slow it down. Like, we got to get some verified times, whether you're coming to our camp and we're timing you ourselves, like, God, you ran a 4.3 or 4.4, or you're going to go to a track meet and run a sub 10 or sub 11, like, jump really far, do something crazy. But, like, you got to get some verified measurables that tell us you're an athlete. We also got to get eyes on you. And we don't always have the resources to be able to get down and recruit in the Valley, but you guys can get on our campus. And that's the main thing, is, like, we want to verify heights and weights, because, again, maybe I sound harsh, but I subtract 2 inches from every kid's height, because it's a true thing. And yes, you may be using the thing that's in the school that's been there since the 1950s, and, like, this thing says I'm 5'11", but when we get you on campus and we put you on the Blesto, which is what we use on pro day, what the NFL scouts use, and you're 5'9", buddy, you're 5'9", and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, So those are things, is, like, run track, get on campus, and then go to campuses that are, like, actually recruiting you. If you haven't talked to anybody on the University of Texas football staff, don't go to their camp. Don't spend money at the University of Texas if you haven't even talked to anybody there. Go to schools that are recruiting you, that are actively talking to you, because then you're going to have a better shot at making it. You're going to have a better shot at getting on their radar, getting their attention. Those are just things that I've noticed. Like, is there a way to get on a D1 coach's radar? Like, there's not a rhyme, reason, or way to do it. Like, I'll tell you, the big thing too is persistence. Like, I get so many direct messages every day that if you just send one, within 30 minutes, it might be at the bottom. And I'm not telling you to message the coach every 30 minutes, but every other week or something, like, just, like, be persistent. Try to be at the top of his mind, so he's thinking about you. Because we do get lost. And I was one that I was like, man, those coaches never answer me. Those college coaches are jerks. And then I became one. I'm like, yeah, I get it.
So, that was that kind of piggyback on my other question, and you hit on it earlier about the camps, right? So that's actually a good piece of insight that I hadn't even thought of. If you haven't talked to any coach, don't go to that camp.
Unless you're going to go off there and pop off like a 4.3, and
that's what I was going to say. So, how often do you find those diamonds in the rough? I mean, what are the odds?
It happens. Like, you get kids that show up to a camp and just, like, they're either, like, got all the measurables in terms of height and all that stuff, or they're going to show up and they're going to jump through the roof or run something fast to where it's like, hey, like, highlight that name. Like, let's talk to him after camp. Let's dig into it a little bit more. Because some guys are just great testers, and then you turn on the film and you're like, oh,
Michael Ula.
That's true. I agree with you on the subtract 2 inches, because if you can go back to my manual, they had me at 6'1". I ain't 6'1".
Bro, I was 5'11" on the roster. I just got my official height on our Blesto the other day. I
Yeah,
am 5'9". Like,
yeah, 2 inches. You subtracted. I'm about 5'11". You know what I mean?
and
But
you,
hey, I know I caught on something you said earlier when you were talking about how y'all schedule y'all's camps. You get like 10 camps to go to, and that kind of fits right on into where you were going with the football camps in the off season. And I've seen it this summer with a lot of our local quarterbacks and quarterbacks that I follow throughout, and athletes throughout they have a list of like 8 camps they're hitting. Like they hit Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, SMU, TCU, like bam, 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 right? A couple days in a row. And I think that people don't realize too is that just because it's a University of Oklahoma camp, that doesn't mean that there's not other schools there checking out the athletes. And you mentioned that earlier. That's where y'all put kids. And I know a couple kids that they've had the smaller D1s like Sam Houston State reach out to them. Stephen F. Austin reach out to them, things like that at bigger camps. So like I think that is good insight to give our kids. I think camps in the off season for these kids down here to put yourself against that next
now,
level competition is probably your better option.
now I will say you can camp too much. Like you're a quarterback and you're throwing 2 camps a week, all something like you're gonna burn your arm out by the time you get to the season because you gotta remember season priority film. You got to put it on film, and
Yeah.
it's like I've seen it with some of the high school kids. I was like, I learned. I was a young coach. I took my kids like, oh, we're gonna camp. We're gonna camp. We gotta get like, but then you run so many 40s, you bust your hamstring. Like, so you also got to be strategic at like maybe you go to every camp, but you don't got to run the 40 at every camp. Like, be picky and choosy about when you do things. There's a right way to camp. There's a wrong way to camp. Like, and like I said, maybe your body can handle. These kids are resilient, but like, I just know like maybe start early on with a lot of camps, but as you get towards closer to July, taper off because then you got to focus on your team.
And and would you recommend kids as freshmen or eighth graders going into freshman year to start getting out there and getting at these camps?
Yeah, you got to see what it's like so that, but like if you wait till your senior year, you're going to be so like
You're out.
like not starstruck, but it's like, oh my God, I'm experiencing this all for the first time. And I'll give a shout like the McHugh twins, like what they do is great because it's exposing these kids to what those camps are like, and they're bringing schools that recruit South Texas. Like I said, what they're doing is great, and if I was any kid, like I tap into that market in terms of like picking their brains because they're great at what they do. And like I said, they run a good camp. And now, like if that's the first camp you go to, guess what? Your next camp, like they slow it down. They teach you what camps are like because you got to learn. You got to practice camping before you actually go. It's like a job interview. I'm going to do a bunch of mock interviews before I go for. All right, I'm going to go run my 40 for this college because this is where I really want to play.
Yeah.
So
You think about that, Jacob. We heard Carl Greenwood talk about that those kids a couple years ago at that camp. When you're getting ready to go to big camps at colleges, you should have already been practicing your shuttle.
yep.
You should have been working on your 40. So they don't have to explain it to you because they're not going to explain it to you. It's like you need to see it, do it, and go. Right. So that's another good point you hit on right there, Marco. Is be prepared, right, for these camps.
So one of the other questions, and this is kind of taking a step back here, is when it's coming to recruiting and offering the transfer portal. How is that a hindrance to high school kids getting offers now? So now we've got two signing periods, right? You got the early signing period and you've got the later signing period, which used to be National Signing Day. Now, what we've noticed in the trends is, these early signing days, it's a lot of the transfer portal guys, the guys that are jumping in the portals that aren't looking that aren't being asked not to come back, essentially, right? Your later guys, those guys who are later in the portal, are usually guys that we don't have a spot for you anymore. You may want to start looking. Um, and we've seen these later signing periods where we're starting to see the high school. Is that kind of the new cycle? Unless you're a 4 or 5 star stud, that you're looking for later in the year now.
So like for us, it was a little reverse. Like we got all our high school kids in that first signing day, and then the second signing day was transfers. Like what are we missing? Like to me, there's some schools I classify them to where there's transfer schools and the developmental schools. Maybe that's not fair to classify them that way, but like that's just There's some schools that hang their hat on and really rely on pulling in the best transfers they can, and that's how they're successful. And there's some schools that can't do that.
Ole Miss. Ole Miss.
Hey, man.
They're gonna and they're gonna hang their hat
There
on.
goes our shot at Lane Kiffin. Thanks, dude. Way to go.
We're gonna bring in high school kids and develop them. Kids that may have been under recruited or kids that need a couple of years before they become that person. But it's like us. We used to we recruit. I think we signed like 25 high school kids, and then we did go to the portal. But you see the bulk. It was like high school kids, but there's holes. Sometimes there's a position group where the older guy is not ready, or maybe they're young and they need a couple more years before you throw them out there. You don't want to set them up for failure. You got to sometimes go find those couple band-aids, couple positions here and there where you need it.
So we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier offline, and you kind of hit it there again. So I'm glad you did. When you're recruiting, you're not recruiting every position every year, right? I mean, I think that's another misconception is, oh, well, they recruit every position every year. That's not necessarily how it works.
It all depends on, especially with this new Open 85 rule, it really depends on roster attrition. If you have a big senior class, you're going to have a lot of scholarships to use. If that senior class only has 6-9 kids, well, that's what you're working with, unless you got kids that hop in the portal. So some classes might be big, some classes might be smaller. And do they recruit every position? No. We may have a stacked room, in the offensive line room. You want an offensive lineman every year, but maybe I'll throw another position. We may not need running backs this year, so we're not going to recruit a running back. We're not going to sign one just to sign one. It's all depending on what the roster needs are. And again, a good practice habit would be looking at the roster, see how many is it senior loaded. Do they need young guys? Do they have a lot of young guys? Then they don't need young guys. And then also going on 247 Sports and how many people in my position group do they have committed? If I'm an offensive lineman and that team that I'm looking at already has 3 to 4 kids committed, chances are they're probably taking another offensive lineman. Or a big one is if I'm a quarterback and they've already got a quarterback committed for my class, I'm probably not going to that school, because rule of thumb is every school takes 1 quarterback a year. Now, some schools will do 2, depending on, again, how many kids leave and what they're doing with their roster. But if I'm dead set on this school, but they have a quarterback committed, get ready to walk on or go look somewhere else, because they already allotted their quarterback scholarship for the year.
So some of the things that we've heard coaches say, Sark is one of them. When it comes to taking a portal player or a high school player, I want to take a player who's experienced, who knows how the college game works, who knows the kind of work that's required to maintain to be a D1 athlete. Obviously that impacts the high school kids, right?
Yeah, it does. People say that there's less opportunities. To me, I think it's still more opportunities. You just might not be playing at the level you want to play.
Mm-hmm.
I had kids at Eden that, to be honest, we all felt like they could have played Division I football, but they ended up signing really good scholarships to Division II schools, and they're playing and having a great time. So it's, again, all these windows are closing. I can't go play for this big Power 5 school. Maybe you weren't meant to play there. A lot of kids get oversigned in terms of they get signed to a level that they're not ready for, and which is why you see so many kids in the portal bouncing back down. I think it's helping kids also realize maybe I need to be at this FCS school or this Division II school, and then they end up having a great time, or they ball out and then they graduate and then they're grad transfers and then they actually go to the level they were supposed to play at. So I think everything happens for a reason.
See, I use I talk about it a lot, and Jacob will know where I'm going with this probably already, but I talk about, when kids and people around here talk about D1, right? And you hit on it good. Not everyone's built for D1, but I think, if people take a look at Bailey Zappi, local kid out of Victoria, Texas, had the size, right? Probably didn't have as much of the tape. I know he slung the rock a lot. It was the year right before we started our podcast. I was still pretty heavily involved in high school football, but he flew under the radar, right? He went to Houston Baptist University, which I think is now Houston Christian, where Cutter Stewart from Alice went. And I talk about all the time. I'm like, kid like Andrew Body went to Texas Southern. That's another kind of like smaller school, but it's like if you go to these schools and you look at them, and like UIW is a good example last year, even though they're D1, and in terms of like the offensive firepower they're going to put up. That was what they did with HCU or HBU. They weren't as explosive. Then he moves on to Western Kentucky, who seems like Western Kentucky's turned into almost like Memphis now. It's like they're dropping over 5,000 yards of offense and they're scoring 40 plus a game. And then look at that. He goes to Western Kentucky, balls out. He's sitting in the NFL, and honestly, quite frankly, pushing Mac Jones for a job. And Mac Jones sat there 3 years at Alabama behind great quarterbacks because he went to an oversigned quarterback room and had to sit, and sit. And I always think that's a good example. And you kind of hit the nail on the head when you're talking about, hey, you know what? We had kids at Eaton. They could have probably went D1, but they got a great scholarship at a D2. And, I think another thing that people don't realize is not every year you're allotted 30 plus scholarships. I think that's a big misconception is like, oh, we get 30 scholarships a year. You don't. It's like, what, 30 to 40 for the whole team, correct?
Yeah, it's an open, at least with the D1, it's an open 85 rule. So it's like we have 85 scholarships, and it's a rolling thing. So if we lose through graduation, through transfer portal, if we lose 20 players, we can sign 20 players. If we lose 5 players, we can only sign 5 players. It's just kind of like a rolling thing, open 85. I don't know if it's similar or different with the D2s and FCSs because, again, they get partial scholarships and things like that. It might be a little different.
So I got another question. It's actually something we talked about earlier before on air. So how many times do you realistically recruit a kid out of position? For example, you recruit a tight end to play tackle because he's big, but has good feet, or safety, you want to be a linebacker. Is this common? Or are you more likely to lose the recruit early in the process if he knows he might have to play a new role?
I mean, I don't think you lose recruits. That's actually one of my favorite ways to recruit. I call it +1 recruiting. We did it a lot at Washington State, and it's something we adapted from Wyoming. It's something they did. Like you look at, I'm gonna lose his name. He's a starting middle linebacker for the Bengals. Played in the Super Bowl this last time. When he was recruited to Wyoming, he was a corner. You look at Brian Urlacher. He was a receiver in high school, safety in college, ended up being a linebacker. So it's like, again, you just kind of have to project how you look at the kid's frame and you kind of have an idea of what it's going to turn into. Like if there's an oversized a tight end, I'm going to be upfront with him. Tell, hey, like you have the potential to be a great tackle or an average tight end. You pick and choose. Same thing, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You take, long corners, you turn them into safeties. You take bigger safeties, turn them into backers, and if they're long, you turn them into defensive ends. You get your thicker defensive ends, turn them into really athletic 3 techniques, and same thing with nose tackles. And some kids really buy into it. We did a lot with this last class. We did have some kids that maybe played DB and now they're going to play linebacker for us, or we're a big receiver and now they're going to play tight end for us. So it happens all the time. All you got to do is just be transparent. Now, some schools won't. Some schools are going to tell a kid exactly what he wants to hear. Hey, man, you're going to run the rock for us. And then they get here and then he's a fullback or something like that. Like some schools are really big on telling kids what they want to hear to get them. Or you could be transparent with the kid from the start and just tell them straight up, like, this is what our plan for you is. And some kids really like that.
Yeah. And some don't. Some may move on and be like, that's not what I want to hear, right? I mean, that's just the game, right? That's just the way it is.
You might have a quarterback that runs a 4.4. And it's like, dude, you have an average arm, but you're 6'3", and you run like the wind. Change your position.
Timpson. I'm not gonna make a name. I'm just gonna say,
hey man, hey, dude, you got the flag. Throw the flag, dude.
It's not a flag.
Yeah, dude. See,
name, dude. Come on, come on.
That's a no question, dude. That's a no question. That's a no question.
That's not a question. That was a statement.
If this wasn't live, I would go. If this was live, I'd go and edit that out, dude. I'd put like a duck in your place or something right there. Right. So we're running out of time. So I got one more thing I want to ask you, Marco, before we go. So
hang on, one more for me.
Okay, go ahead.
7-on-7. What's your thoughts? Are we overdoing 7-on-7 in the off season with these pickup teams we got travel 7-on-7, and then you have high school 7-on-7? Like, what is your thoughts on it? Is it needed? Should we cut back on it? What's something that local kids should kind of start looking at as we go forward? Because I'm seeing a lot of it, and it's kind of taken off since me and you played in high school. It was kind of big then, but it seems to be like a select ball thing now.
We were slot T. We didn't do no 7-on-7. But
We were too, but we actually did. We had a
we
seven.
did every
Hey,
center like
you see that? That's why you can't trust 7-on-7 because you'll see a slot T or a wishbone team going to the state 7-on-7 championships and almost winning the thing.
It's all flood concepts.
Yeah.
Well, 7-on-7, it's a great tool to work on timing, work on your hands, work on your routes, work on throwing. But I mean, some people, I won't recruit a kid off 7-on-7 film. It's a great tool. Do it with your team. I mean, again, it also falls into the whole like you can camp too much, you can 7-on-7 too much, and burn yourself out, get hurt, something like that. Like, be picky and choosy about where you go and do things, but like definitely play 7-on-7 with your team. You want that chemistry with your quarterback. Now the timing thing's a little bit off because you got 4 seconds and nobody's touching you or any of that stuff, or you can't press. But I would use it. It's a great tool. And you go and you do 1-on-1s, you do 7-on-7s because you get to kind of assess a kid's skill. But like, am I going to sit here and offer a kid who's never played varsity football but is out here killing it on 7-on-7? Like, probably not.
So my question, and it's something that Justin hit on earlier, just to kind of clarify, because we've seen college coaches or coaches in general kind of dictate what needs to be on a kid's Twitter bio. What needs to be on a bio? What does a college coach look for on a Twitter bio?
I think you guys alluded to it earlier. Your name, your high school, your graduation year, your GPA, position, if that's something, importance, and then your website should be your huddle link, so it's easy for us to find. Sometimes we go to profiles and we can't find the film. Yeah, just like pertinent information, stuff that makes it a little bit easier for us to maneuver. Because it might, sometimes it might help or hurt, but like for us, like if a kid has a certain GPA on his bio, it just lets me know not to waste my time. He can't play at Rice or he can't get admitted or anything like that. But on the flip side, like I'm scrolling through and I see some beautiful GPAs. I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. What's up with this kid? Let me dive in. Let me do a little bit more research.
So the other thing we see on there is that clearinghouse. I guess it's the NCAA clearinghouse number. Is that something that needs to be on there as well?
Yeah, I would get that done. You probably don't have to do it till your junior year. You can't go on your official visits till you have a NCAA ID number because that's something we ask for. We have to input it and stuff like that. So probably around junior year is a good time to do that.
What is that number? It's just
like it's a clearinghouse number, eligibility center. It just shows that you have to submit your transcripts and stuff like that, and it's the NCAA saying like he's okay to recruit.
So that's that you kind of alluded to earlier. You go through the filter and you can go by GPA and stuff like that. So it would go off that NCAA number.
Yep.
Okay. Justin, you got anything else? Do you guys have anything else?
God, I have one for a second there. I don't want to hold them up. Middle of the season. I've told parents a lot of times, or kids that they've asked, every 4 games, chop up some film for huddle, get some fresh stuff out there, and put it as your, you can pin stuff on your Twitter now. What's your thoughts on that? Pin that, tag coaches, just keep that type of content flowing throughout the season, or should you just wait till the end of the year and make one full huddle highlight? What's your thoughts on that?
No, you need to periodically be updating your film because you never know which week or what play is going to change your life. So be updating it every week if you can, or wait 3 weeks and do it. I'd be strategic with how you tag coaches because, a lot of times you're tagging schools that play against each other or like tagging opposing coaches. Like if you're going to tag a coach, like pick that staff and do coaches from that staff. The DMs are good, but like really like go through your high school coach. Like that's who I talk to. That's because I've built relationships with all those guys, and those are people that I trust. And even though sometimes coaches lie and tell me the kids are 6'5" and they're actually 6'1", but it happens.
I was about to ask this next because there's some schools around here that they haven't, and I'm not bashing them, but they haven't. It doesn't seem like they really caught on to that. Like there's a lot of schools, and I give them great credit. We have a recruiting coordinator. You had one. You were that guy at Eaton, right? That was your side job as a coach up there. You were helping push those kids, right, in the DFW. For a kid that's at a school that doesn't really have that, coach that's super hands-on with the social media and reaching out like that, what type of college or which college coach should you tag? Because you see kids they're tagging head coaches or they're tagging the OC. Is there other coaches that they could maybe tag that don't have as much on the plate that can see this and be like, hey, Marco, check out this kid from Austin. Let's show him to, and I'm not familiar with your OCs and your head coach, but let's start showing him to the other guys in the room. Like, because everyone always tags the head coach or the OC or the DC, but like, is there other coaches that you should tag instead? Maybe position coach.
That's a good point you bring up. Like, first of all, make sure you're not tagging the actual like don't tag at Rice football because a coach doesn't run that. That's our creative director, and she doesn't watch film. She makes graphics and videos, and all like, don't tag that. Don't tag that account. Tag coaches, tag quality control, tag grad assistants, because again, likelihood is like people in those positions have a little bit less following, so they're not getting as much traffic. Tag position coaches, tag like anybody and everybody that's involved with the football team, again, except for the creative directors and like the actual like at the team. There's recruiting accounts too. I'd hit those, but I mean, there's no rhyme or reason. It just takes one. And again, I'll use myself as the example with the Jaguars. It just takes one. Applied for all 32 teams for 6 years. It just takes one team organization just be like, I'm going to check this kid's film out today. So I say, like, update your film all the time. Like, you never know what's going to happen. Your life can change from one day to the next. One day you could be down in the valley at an 0-10 program, and the next day you could be a Division I recruiting guy with an opportunity to go to the NFL. So it's you just never know.
Living the dream. Living the dream. Marco, thank you for your time, man. We know you got a whole lot of stuff going on. You got pickleball to rest up from. Probably going to get a nice bath from that one, right, afterwards. I think it was a lot of great info, man. I hope a lot of folks can go back and we'll chop pieces of this up and put it on social media. Some of these key points that you hit, 20, 30-second blurbs, and hopefully they'll come back and watch the video and hopefully they learn something, because that was the whole point of bringing you on the show, is to educate these kids and these parents and these coaches on what colleges are looking for, not necessarily a D1 college, but a college in general, because free education is the goal, right? And I hate the D1 or bust mentality, because just like you said, not everybody's cut out to be a D1 football player. And if somebody's offering you a chance to get a free education and play a game you love for free, you need to take it.
I mean, I'll put it out there, like, be old and bitter like Coach Regalado here. Like, I had a scholarship to go to a Division II school, Lindenwood, and I turned it down because I said, I'm going to go to Texas State. I'm going to go walk on. I'm not a Division I football player. I didn't make the team. And now, instead of saying like, oh, I got to play college football, now I have that, like that, I didn't get to play college football because I chose to not take. I was like a D1 or nothing mentality. I'm going to Texas State no matter what. I'm going to try out. They're gonna put me on the team and all this. Like, no, I turned down a scholarship. I was like, I regret it every day. Now, I think everything happens for a reason. I don't know.
But yeah, you never know where that path would have taken. You may not be where you're at right now.
Exactly. But I always tell kids, like, just don't turn down opportunities. Like, take advantage of every opportunity.
Yep. And sometimes you got to make your own. Right. Yep. So make those opportunities, take them when you can get them. Marco, again, thank you for coming on, man. We appreciate it. What are you laughing at?
My God.
Hey, I'm gonna ask for him because he doesn't want to ask you, right? He's flirting around with it. How can Jake Romero become a TikTok star? Because he's venturing out into TikTok. If you haven't noticed these last couple of days,
he's doing a great job. I mean, like my fandom, everybody claims TikTok. It wasn't TikTok. I just made the TikTok videos and then put them on Twitter. So.
Yeah, that's where I saw it on Twitter because I hate TikTok. God.
I figured there was no coaches using TikTok. They were like, oh, TikTok's a sissy thing. Like, so put it on Twitter where all the coaches were.
Yeah.
Yep, Twitter.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, man. Again, we hope you guys got some good information from Marco, and we hope you enjoyed seeing Justin and I's faces again. We'll be popping up again throughout the offseason. We do want to send a shout. We got sponsors for the year already. We got the show sponsored for the year. We're really looking forward to that. Elite Tank Services is back for the year. And Doug over at 97 Sports Promotions is back again. guys, you need some helmet decals. I'm telling you, he's the guy to hit up, man. He's got his own print shop, does everything in house, and really reduces the costs very much. I know prices of everything are rising. Doug keeps everything very reasonably. So give Doug a shout out at 97 Sports Promotions. Guys, again, thanks for showing up. Marco, again, thank you, man. We'll be hitting you up again. Let us know how it goes, man. I'm really excited for you, man. Um,
Yeah, dude, for
that's not
sure.
an opportunity that guys like us get very often, man. So, man,
Living the dream for us, dude. You're living the
yep,
dream for us.
yep.
Hopefully, opening doors. It's always been lift as you climb. So
I,
again, I really, really, out of everything I've done, what I've hope is shown that these kids from South Texas that you don't let your environment dictate to what you can or can't do. Only you set your ceilings. You do whatever you want to do.
and with that, guys, we are out again. Thanks, Marco.
No
We'll see
problem.
you
Have a
guys
good
soon.
Thanks a lot, brother.